We are going to be working through 3F today. So 3F is really just focusing on being able to sketch a problem. There are multiple ways for us to be able to sketch, and this is going to come back into four main elements for us to use. The first element is really about understanding the shape. This is key. So if we think about in standard form, or in turning point form, if the coefficient of x squared or in front of the brackets is positive, then it's going to be a minimum. If it is a negative, then it's going to be a maximum. The next part that we need to understand is the y-intercept. Now we can work out the y-intercept by making x equals 0, and that means we can So when x is 0, we'll go somewhere through here. Another alternative is, when it's in standard form, is to know the c is the y-intercept. The next part is we need to know the x-intercepts. Now, with x-intercepts, we can just factorize and solve. We can complete the square and solve for x, or we can use the quadratic formula. So there's multiple methods to use, and there's no wrong way to do it. But with this, is we're picking what works best for you. Now, we know with a parabola, we can have one solution. So the turning point is on the axis. We can have no solution where it's not going through the x-intercept, but we can also have two solutions. Now, with finding the turning there's two ways we can do this. One is we can look at it as getting into turning point form. The other way is we can look at finding the axis of symmetry, and we know by using the quadratic formula, the axis of symmetry is going to be x is equal to b over 2, negative b over 2. So be mindful of that we can use multiple methods. So let's have a look at this first question. Y equals x squared minus 6x plus 8. The first thing we're going to do is determine the shape of the graph. So in this case here, our coefficient is positive. So I know straight away it's going to be a minimum. To find the y-intercept, as in standard forms, I know it's going to be 8, positive 8, but I'm just going to substitute x equals 0 into my equation, and that leaves me with 8. So I just used two methods there. The next part is finding the x-intercepts. Because my coefficient of x squared is just 1, I can easily do this one. I will find two values that times together to equal 8 and together to equal b, which is negative 6. Because I need to add up to being a negative, and I need a positive answer for timesing, both must be negative, and it's either 1 and 8 or 2 and 4. And 2 and 4 are the only ones that will add up to negative 6. Okay, now, if you already understand that and you know the relationship, then straight away you're able to go to the next step in factorized form. Otherwise, you can take the other route, which is just rewriting it and grouping. So now I've got x minus 4 and x minus 2. I've got two equations now. 0 is equal to x minus 4 and 0 is equal to x minus 2. The next step is I'm going to get x by itself. To get x by itself, I'm just going to plus 4, and it gives me x equals 4, and as a coordinate, it is 4, 0. On the next equation, 0 equals x minus 2. I'm just going to add 2 to both sides, and I get x equals 2. The coordinate will be 2, 0. The final step is finding the turning point. So this means we need to complete the square. Complete the square means we need to know what b over 2 squared is. In this case, b will be negative 6. So it's negative 6 over 2 squared. That simplifies down to it's negative 3 squared. The next step is we are just going to add and subtract this into the equation. This is what we always do at first, because the first part here is going to be using our perfect square rule, which is a minus b squared equals a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. The final step is we are just going to use that rule and leave the left over on the right-hand side. So that gives me x minus 3 in brackets squared, take away in brackets negative 3 squared plus 8. We'll simplify that. Negative 3 squared is 9, so we take away 9 plus 8, which equals negative 1. That gives me my point of 3 and negative 1. Now I'm just going to put all my points onto my graph. So I've got my y-intercept, which is when x is 0, y is 8. Make sure you label it properly. The next part, I've got my x-intercepts, and my x-intercepts is x is 2, y is 0, and x is 4, y is 0. And I've got my turning point as well, which is when x is 3, y is negative 1. And I just join them together. Let's look at the next question. We've got y equals negative x squared plus 7x minus 12. So straight away, step one is always the shape. We've got a negative coefficient, which means it's going to be a maximum. To find the y-intercept, I could straight away look at the c, and it's negative 12. I can also substitute x equals 0, and I'm still going to get negative 12. So whichever method works for you. The next step is find the x-intercept. So this is where we can factorize. Now I'm just going to take out the negative and changing all my signs. That just makes it a bit easier, because now I'm dealing with wanting two numbers to times together to equal AC, which is 12, and add up together to equal negative 7. That means both my answers will need to be a negative, and it'll be 3 and 4. Negative 3 times negative 4 equals 12, and negative 4 plus negative 3 is equal to negative 7. If you understand the relationship, you are straight away able to put it into the factorized form like I've done. If you don't, you just need two groupings until you see that relationship. It gives me two equations, because if one is 0, the whole thing is 0. So I've got 0 is equal to x minus 4, and 0 is equal to x minus 3. So on the first equation, to get x by itself, I add 4 to both sides, and that gives me x equals 4, or 4, 0 as a point. And the other equation, I add 3 to both sides, and that gives me x equals 3, or I can write it as 3, 0. The last part is finding the turning points. So to do that, I need to make sure I'm using this one here where the a value is 1. So with complete square, we are doing b over 2 squared. Our b is negative 7. It's not 7, so make sure you use that correct number. So it'll be negative 7 over 2 squared. I add and subtract, so I'm making an equivalent equation. So I'm adding and subtracting the same thing, making sure that I've got the plus first. This is where we are factorizing using the perfect square. So the first part is the perfect square. The second part is the add-on. So we're keeping the same brackets on either side with a negative on the outside. Inside, I've got my perfect square, x minus 7 over 2 squared, and then I've got what's left. Take away negative 7 over 2 squared plus 12. I simplify that. So that is negative 7 squared is 49, 2 squared is 4. This is where I need to make 12 be out of 1, and I need to make my denominators the same size so I can simplify this. So to get 1 to 4, I times it by 4, so I times 12 by 4, which is 48. This tells me that I've got negative 49 over 4 plus 48 over 4, which gives me negative 1 over 4. Now it's getting a bit easier to simplify. But I do have an extra bracket that I don't want. So I just need to apply that negative to the outside here and apply that to the negatives, and that will change to a positive. So with this, it gives me my point of 7 over 2, comma 1/4 as my turning point. So now I've got this information. All I need to do is put everything onto my graph. So the first thing I'm putting on is my y-intercept, and make sure you label that. X is 0, y is negative 12. When x is 3, y is 0, and when x is 4, y is 0. And my turning point, when x is 7 over 2, y is 1/4. And then I just join them all together. Okay. Last question. If I've got y equals x squared minus 8x plus 18, the first thing that I'm going to do here is determine the shape. The shape x squared is positive, which means it's going to be a minimum. If I'm finding the y-intercept is 18. I can double check that by substituting x as 0. Finding the x-intercept. So the first thing I'm going to do is make y equals 0, and I'm going to factorize. Or I can complete the square. So I'll complete the square this time, just to make it slightly different. So if we're completing the square, the first thing I need to think about is what is my b value. My b value is negative 8, so it'll be negative 8 over 2. Negative 8 over 2 is negative 4. So now I've got that, I'm just going to use the a minus b bracket squared rule. So first I will put in the negative 4. So I'm adding negative 4 squared minus negative 4 squared. This first part turns into a minus b squared, and then I've got this left over on the outside. So straight away that turns into x minus 4 in bracket squared. Take away negative 4 squared plus 18. I can then simplify this. So negative 4 squared is 16. Then I've got negative 16 plus 18, which is plus 2. To get rid of the power of 2, a square root, if I wanted to solve, but currently it's in turning point form. So I will take away the 2. For some reason I've put the same thing down multiple times. And square root. Now, if I square root this, we can't do it, which means there's no solutions, there's no x-intercepts. But we've done a lot of the work for the turning point. So we got to this point with our previous steps. This is where if you don't want to factorize and you understand turning point, you can just use turning point to find x-intercepts as well. So in this case here, our turning point is here. So that tells me when my brackets is 0, that will be our shift, our horizontal shift. What's left over will be our vertical shift. So that means I've got 4 and 2. So we've got all of our information that we need. The first part is our y-intercept, which is 18. And I'm going to label that when x is 0, y is 18. I've got no x-intercepts, but I do have a turning point, and the turning point is at 4 and 2. And then I can draw my graph.